morning, world. Welcome to another episode of 4 a.m. in Quarantine. I'm your host, Steven Rivera, and I am here with my man, Kevin Dugan. Excited to have you on, my man. Kevin is the CEO of Altus Investment Group out in California. I know you do some business. I know you're based in California, and I know a lot of your business is done in Chicago, so I'll let you speak to that. Excited for you to share your story and share how you've kind of gone from a corporate sales role and have gotten into the real estate investment world. I know you're very heavily into the multifamily rental aspect of the game, as well as some single family work as well. And I know a huge focus of yours that I definitely want you to touch on as well is just having a huge portfolio and a variety of investments for your players to get in from any angle, right? And you can definitely speak better to that. That entry point, so you have beginners that can get in the game, as well as someone who's a veteran who's been in the space for maybe 15, 20 years that would like to invest passively or even in a partnership with you. I love how you have that mentality, almost like a one-size-fits-all type model. So, yeah, man, definitely appreciate you hopping on, Kevin. And, let's get to it.
Appreciate it, man. I'm grateful to be here and grateful to be able to, number one, have health and family be in great condition, friends. So that's most important right now, just to really be appreciative for some of the fundamentals, but also grateful to be able to jump on with you today early in the morning and hopefully add some value to your community. Background, so I started off with a maybe traditional rich dad, poor dad story. In college, I switched my major 5 times. It was kind of lost in terms of direction. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was like, that's it, entrepreneur. That's the route that I want to go. I wish I'd known how challenging that path would be, but it's definitely full of incredible stories, incredible life lessons. And it's one of those things where it's just kind of put me on this journey from, corporate sales, consulting for oil rig companies. I didn't mention that, now into a real estate entrepreneur. And, my general philosophy is that everybody should invest in some form or another. And whether that's your education to continue to, specialize in your craft, or your financial education, whether that's in real estate, which is a lot of what we are proponents of, just because there's so many different benefits behind it, or non-conventional investments. The stock market's great, although it's a little crazy right now. There's also like commodities, there's bonds, there's a lot of different assets out there. It's really kind of what's your appetite, and real estate has been the avenue that's been able to give me the platform to be able to help and create more value for other people. But the Rich Dad Poor Dad story, in college I made that switch. I was going from like the bio side to becoming a pharmacist or a dentist, and I was like, I don't want to be one of those people that people hate to see on a regular basis because they're not passionate about what they do.
Right.
So I jumped into sales, and the sales aspect, the first company I worked for is Empire Today. 100% commission. The leads were fed to you by the higher ups, and they really just kind of spoon fed the high quality leads to the best performing people, and also like the more seasoned people. And I just realized how good and how important it is to have an important foundation of a great sales background, because that's given me the flexibility to accumulate real estate assets. Fast forward a couple of years, I quit that job, moved to a better corporate sales position, and that flexibility to be able to control your own schedule, but also earn a great income and then invest that into real estate is what allowed me to slowly build up my portfolio in Chicago, and then grow it much quicker, and then transition to multifamily, which is a lot of transitions that people make.
I love it. Yeah. And that's a very similar trajectory in which we are going and we have gone as well. But I definitely want you to speak a little bit on, what fueled the passion, or what continues to fuel your passion, and how does the corporate job and the real estate investing, how does that come together, right?
Great questions. So, you know, I put a lot of thought into why I continue to push forward and, what motivates me. And um, a buddy, Adam Carswell, like recently simplified it really well. To have goals are incredibly important. And to have that clarity of where you want to be in the future is also very powerful to achieve your dreams and get there quicker. Um, but I like to work with the idea of having a mission. And a mission is something that's typically never attainable. It's something in a direction that will continue to push you forward and get you through thick and thin. And for me, my mission is to continue to add value to people through real estate investments and just business ventures in general. And real estate, I've seen the power of how that can basically allow you to create so much passive income that you free up all your time. And when you free up your time to be able to do what you love to do, that's where you start to hit strides in life where every day is a blessing. You're just kind of in this flow state where, moving forward, that if you have the right intentions behind it and you bring that right mindset of value to other people, the money will come through these actions. So really when it comes down to it, it's just the motivation to continue to provide as much value to other people. And then from that value, be able to grow from it.
I love that. And providing value is what we've learned is truly the key, right? In anything you do, whether it's just your personal life, whether it's business, it doesn't matter, right? You just want to be that resource. You want to be that go-to guy that people can lean on for, your compassion, your knowledge, whatever it may be. Just being that well-rounded person and being able to be of value to, not just one person, but many, many people. And I love how you spoke on that because, it's everything, right? And, you creating those daily habits in order to kind of get yourself to that well-rounded figure or person that people can lean on, is also a huge part of what you do. I know that, right?
Yeah. There are so many different ways to measure success in this world. And traditionally people look at it from a financial perspective. How much money have you made? What have you done from a business perspective? But I've always gravitated towards a more, well-rounded side of like having fun and enjoying the process, not always sacrificing at the very beginning just for the end. Building up really great relationships with your family, being able to have those real conversations with them where you can connect on a deeper level. That was challenging for me for a long time for all kinds of different reasons. But then the same with friends, being there for them, knowing that you're going to take care of them through thick and thin and that you really have their best interests in mind. And on top of it, personal fitness. A lot of these kind of carry on to some of the principles that Tony Robbins speaks about in terms of having success in multiple avenues on your life to kind of paint that full picture. And it's not always easy because there's so much information in this world. There's a lot of distractions pulling you that way, this way, and it's hard to stay focused all the time on what you're trying to create. But that's the beauty of the journey of this life that we have. So
Yeah, I love that, man. And I know you talked about diving deeper into, relationships and being able to have relationships on a deeper level, right? I know in your business and just in real estate in general and in a sales role, people are going to be everything, if you will, right? People are going to be, without your people, you don't thrive. You don't have business. You're not making any sort of monetary, value. So talk about how important people are in your business and how you really approach that each and every day, knowing that, your people are going to be your most prized possession, right?
definitely. I mean, in general, people are what makes this world go around. And in general, when it comes to business, it's taking care of the people or their perceived value of whatever your product or service is that makes your business grow. So you need to be able to resonate with, whoever you're dealing with, whether they're, in our industry, a tenant, a contractor, a vendor, an employee, an investor. Each of them have different needs that you need to be able to resonate to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I'm a really big proponent of creating a win-win out of everything. And obviously there's compromise to that, and it's perception as to like what that win-win is. But, the golden rule really holds true in most of the dealings that I work with, because I realize how important it is to, treat people with respect, treat people like a person, but then also gain that credibility so that they want to work with you, that they want to grow with you, that they believe in your vision. And when it comes to the people out there, my team in Chicago, that's been absolutely critical because I live here in LA. So I've built this single family home turnkey operation. So we buy houses, we renovate them, we place tenants inside them through our management company. And then after it's rented, we sell it as a rental investment, and that investment needs to be secured for our clients. And that requires a lot of trust, especially when I'm here in California the majority of the time. And then I visit out there occasionally just so that they know I'm involved in the business and that I want to make sure that things are growing well. And it's just communicating your vision of where you see the company going. And then, from there, trying to put people in positions where they're going to succeed based on what they want to do and how they want to grow. So it's kind of, offering them opportunity. And then if they perform well in this opportunity, continue to reward them and continue to give them more growth. So,
and how do you dive deeper into understanding, what their goals are, and then from there, kind of helping them grow and succeed in that way? Because again, your definition of success is completely different than mine, which is completely different than Joe next door. So, kind of walk me through how you have that conversation and you're able to, kind of get them in a position to succeed the way that they want to succeed. Because I think that's a huge struggle for a lot of leaders and a lot of people in leadership positions, is understanding their people to their core and having them truly be able to chase the goals and dreams that they want. And then again, like kind of pulling that out of them too, because some people don't even know really what they want and they don't really have goals necessarily, right?
Yeah, entirely. I mean, with every relationship, it's just asking them questions about who they are, what's important to them, what their values are, and trying to know them as much as possible. And with that information, you can start to formulate ideas as to like how to motivate them and incentivize them. And there's a lot of different personality types. Some people do very, very well with structure. So, having a set routine every single day of exactly what they should do, constant guidance and feedback and regular meetings, to just give them progress updates as to like, their improvement points as well as their points where they are excelling at, will get them excited. Other people are just go-getters. They'll go on their own. They're action takers. They're just constantly motivated by positive encouragement. But then you kind of have to, because there's so much action taking, you kind of have to steer them in the right direction. So you kind of like focus their attention. There's other people who are like way more analytical, who maybe are more introverted and they kind of want to stay off on their own. They're kind of keeping to their own tasks and project, and you kind of let them be in their own world, but they already know what to do. So, ultimately it comes down to just in sales, you work with a lot of people and you see a lot of different personalities, and you just start to realize like, okay, there's a lot of different approaches to it. But as long as you have like a management system where there's like consistent and regular feedback and very structured goals as to like what you're trying to accomplish week by week, it makes it significantly easier to start pushing the needle and progressing those, and then having the individual grow over time. So that being said, I'm still growing as a leader and a manager. I always look for that two-way communication. And I know it's sometimes difficult if you're talking to your employee to have that candid conversation. but at the same time, I'm not afraid for my feelings to be hurt in any situation, because I want to be better and I want to continue to grow. And that's something that's always motivated me. That consistent refinement and improvement over time.
Yeah. And that goes, and I know you and I were speaking yesterday just about the compound effect, and right, how those little tiny things that you do each and every day add up to this amazing, you know, person, right? Or an amazing trait in you after going through that every single day. And that goes back to just those daily habits, right?
Yeah.
So share a couple of things that, maybe a couple new habits that you're kind of implementing these days to try to help yourself, especially in quarantine, right? So I know that there's a lot of bad habits that can be grown from this, and then
Yep.
there's also amazing habits that can be grown from a time like this. And just kind of share what maybe you're struggling with on the maybe the bad side of things, and then also share some of the things that you're implementing every single day to try to create that new amazing habit. So when we're out of this quarantine, you're a different person and you're a better person.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, oftentimes when you see people who are successful in what you want to do, it's not an overnight success.
Mm.
There have been years, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of hours that went into that person focusing on that craft to get a specific result. And, oftentimes, like, life, habits, business, it's kind of like an iceberg. Entrepreneurship, all the work is beneath the ocean, but then you just see the tip of that iceberg in many cases. And, once again, I'll be completely honest, like, I'm always improving on my habits and skills. So one thing that really resonated with me was the Miracle Morning by Hal, what's his name? Terrible names. Anyways, the Miracle Morning, where it basically focuses on meditation, visualization, a quick workout, reading, and then also, positive mantras. So applying some of those in the morning, you maybe don't have to do all of those, but I started to integrate some of those more regularly, to continue to have more structure and habits in life. Because ultimately, people are, we're really a set of habits. You accumulate habits and you kind of go through this repetition over and over again, and your habits start to manifest in results over time. And I'm a firm believer that when you start to recognize what your habits are, then you have the choice to be able to implement and change those habits into something different that would lead towards the life that you're looking for. So, but the caveat there is, to stay focused on what those habits and new schedules are, so that they're consistent, they're part of your life, versus getting distracted with life in general, which is so easy to do. So more recently, I've decided to wake up every day at around 6 a.m., walk the dog first thing in the morning for about 20 minutes. We just got a puppy. He's crazy, full of energy, and loves to eat his poop. I did not know that about dogs. But, it's one of those things where I was trying to do the cost benefit analysis of, like, hey, how much time is the dog going to take? And I was trying to put him in my schedule early on in the morning so that I could start running with him, to build up additional fitness throughout the day. So there's that. And then afterwards, I'll do some meditation and some visualization in the morning to kind of get things started, to get the mind slowed down. Because there was a very long period of time where, working for the corporate world, plus also having a small business that was growing in Chicago, I would get phone calls at, 4, 5, 6 a.m. and from Chicago, and my mind would be racing right off the bat. And that type of mindset can really make it difficult for you to be productive throughout an entire day. So by having a more controlled schedule and having things be a little bit quieter in the morning and having more control over it, it's allowed my mind to have a lot more clarity and flow a little bit better.
Yeah, totally. And I think that you staying on track in the morning and you being able to have complete control over your morning is truly everything. Because once you allow someone else or something else to kind of take you off track, it's very, very tough to get back on track, especially if it's the first thing that, you wake up, all of a sudden you get a bad phone call that takes your whole, the rest of your day, and kind of throws a huge wrench in it.
Yeah, all too easy in real estate too. I mean, in business in general, like as an entrepreneur, business owner, honestly speaking, you're just dealing with problems. But I don't look at them as problems. I just see them as challenges. And that's the flip side of it. You can change your mindset on the same exact situation, but look at it from a different lens and realize like, it's a part of the game or part of the business that you're in. So,
Yeah. And now I just want to take it back, right? I want to take it back 20, 30, 35 years ago, right?
yeah,
And I want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into, you know, your growing up, right? And your childhood, and how, for me personally, I was blessed, and I still am blessed with amazing parents, amazing upbringing with a foundation, right? With values, where not everyone, unfortunately, not everyone has that opportunity. Now,
sure.
that being said, I was brought up with amazing values, but I was never brought up with a business entrepreneurial mindset. Never was really around business. It was always just kind of working a 9 to 5, making as much as you can, working as many hours as you can, and bringing as much money home to the family so that they could support myself and my two brothers. Now,
Yeah.
how, I want to focus a little bit more on your situation. Were you brought up in an entrepreneurial household, or was it more of a 9 to 5 corporate household? And how were you able to make that transition, if in fact, it was either way, to the entrepreneurial world, and kind of go a little bit deeper and give us a little bit of your childhood.
For sure. So number one, just super grateful for a very kind of quiet childhood. I wouldn't say it was like bizarre, abnormal, or I had to go through any like crazy stresses that made me look at the world with a different lens. Um, but at the same time, it was a childhood where I lived in a very religious environment, and in that religious environment, you're kind of you know you have blinders on as to like what the world looks like. And to be somebody like myself who's very open-minded, who's very much a free thinker, it's a difficult frame to be in. So my parents were 9 to 5ers. My mom's a dental hygienist. My dad was an electrician for the city. And you know their model before them was to go to college, get a job, and have that stability around a good paying corporate job. um, so that particular model works for a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. And there's a lot of different models that people can kind of revolve their life around. I just gravitated more towards the entrepreneurial side. So I would say, in general, I got great values similar to you, where it was a religious household, and we were very much based on being respectful, grateful, being kind to other people. And that gave me a foundation just to continue to keep that on throughout my life, which I'm incredibly grateful for. But it was also very unstructured, in the sense that, like, hey, it would have been great to have more guidance as to, like, you love to do this, so jump into that all out, play that game, see if you really love to do it, and put your full focus and energy on that in a constructive and progressive way where you can build off of it. But that's in retrospect. I mean, honestly speaking, um, parenting is like, I don't have children yet, and I think there's no blueprint for parenting. You just kind of jump into it, and at the same time, like, you have your model that you've lived with, and you try and do the best that you can, but also give them the best opportunity to propel forward. And that's my goal in the future, to give a platform where finances are not an issue. Life stresses don't have to challenge them into a certain direction, where they have that ability to be who they want to be and really connect with what they're supposed to do in life. So my parents gave me a great platform where we didn't have those financial stresses, and college wise, I could kind of choose my own direction, and I chose all kinds of directions. But that was one of the things that I kind of inherited as a habit from them, just kind of like that eclectic thinking. So the capacity to do a lot, but then realize if you're doing too much, you're not doing anything at all. Um, so that's where a lot of the rewiring of my scheduling and habits has come into play over the past, 4 or 5 years, to hone myself back in to be able to put all my energy and efforts into a single project and task and just knock it out ferociously. So um, good and bad, but still blessed. Still
Yeah.
blessed.
And how did, growing up in that corporate 9 to 5 stability of a home, of a household, how were you able to, take that and build a company from the ground up without traditional experience?
Trial and error. Trial and error.
Yeah.
So um, but also finding mentors along the way, and different partners to who have the experience but are engaged with the energy and excitement that you bring. So if I were to go back in retrospect, I would, if you could really you know enthusiastically jump into projects and just put your full energy into it, like I would have done that with different types of mentors. Because the one thing that people don't realize is there's opportunities all over the place. There's people who enjoy your company, who see so much potential in you all the time, but maybe you don't have that clarity yourself because you're distracted on the task at hand, the project, the work that you're doing. And you know human beings are really interesting organisms, because we're the ones, we can create, we can have something in our mind and we can actually go out and create it. And if you believe in something and you put all your energy into it, you can definitely accomplish it. But there are going to be bumps and bruises in the road. It's going to be an up and down journey, and that's a part of life. So I would say, you know, the relationships that I built, there are a lot of people with great experiences, like my first business partner in Chicago, Tim Bell, incredibly gifted, like construction manager, worked for like large projects in Westfield. Like we originally partnered up in Chicago and we're doing fix and flips 7 years ago. And I learned a lot from that, a lot of confidence to be able to invest out of state and realize you can put together teams as long as you have people that you can trust and you can rely on. I've also like had partnerships with some old friends from college. My friend Chris Chan, we started a dog clothing company together, and that was more of like a product where lesson learned, if you're not passionate about something, that business, when things get hard, you're going to lose the energy to push it forward. And even though the product is great, dog clothing, you can purchase high-end dog clothing for $2-3 and sell it for 30 on the back end. So the margins are incredible, but the type of people you may have to work with on selling like high-end boutique clothing isn't, they're different type of people. So really just kind of resonating with your heart about what you're passionate about is so important. And those are lessons learned through business relationships. And then regarding like the fundamentals were a tricky thing, because not having a traditional business background, not having really any business background outside of just reading books, tons of books, lots of podcasts, to learn more information and try and fill in those gaps of where you're not doing things correctly. And that's even in the basic things, like, this last year, I'm like, holy crap, like I set up a holding company with multiple entities underneath it. So I made it complicated from the get-go. And then I didn't build the fundamentals of basic, make sure you get a single bank account for all your business transactions and don't tie anything personal to that, because if you do, your accountant is going to pull his hair out and it's going to make you challenged to figure out what the financials look like. And those are just basic things where, go to YouTube, ask your friends who are business owners, when you're getting started, just ask for hey, what are a couple key tips you'd have before starting a business? Because people are willing to share that knowledge and information if you're willing to ask and if you're willing to show interest in them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have amazing ideas, right? Business ideas and ideas in which you can create something from. But I think a lot of people just aren't necessarily, they're overwhelmed, right? Whether they do already have a job and it's taking up a lot of their time. How did you simplify things, like, in the beginning? Because when I first, started to grow my business as well, it was very overwhelming. There's a million things that have to go on. You
Yeah.
know, aside from, just actually creating the entity and the entity structure, you have your accounting system, you have, your marketing that goes into it. You have to understand who your audience is, and
Yeah.
just taking that all and breaking that down and simplifying it was the only way that I was able to kind of move forward. Otherwise, in the beginning, I was frozen. I didn't know what to do for the first probably 3 to 6 months. I didn't really do much because I just didn't have, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have someone that I can latch on to. So, thinking back to kind of offset that 3 to 6 months, I definitely would have latched on to a mentor, or a friend or a family member that already had an established business that is successful, and kind of pick their brain more. But how did you simplify things and break things down in order to kind of break them down in an action step to make that plan?
Yeah. I would also say like so when it came to real estate, that was kind of like my first business venture. And my friend Tim came to me, he's like, do you want to flip house in Chicago? So from that standpoint, the product was very clear. And in terms of the analysis, the numbers were really simple. You know, buy a house for 50, put about 50 into it and sell for 170. And that was back in 2012. So the having confidence that you can execute, especially on the construction point, that's where my partner Tim brought a lot of confidence in that process. And then from there, it's just stepping forward and taking steps in a direction. Sometimes it's better to just make moves in a direction versus looking at all of the critical tasks that need to be done and getting kind of like locked in and like analysis paralysis. So really the best way for that is, figure out what are going to be your major metrics that are actually going to drive money and revenue. And if you cut out everything else, like what is actually going to make money in your business? So, if you're designing a product, like, okay, you need to prototype that product. You need to figure out, so number one is like, if you've thought of the idea, like start making whatever you're trying to make. If it's real estate, okay, start doing research in that particular area. That you want to focus on, start building relationships in that area to get more houses to you, or apartment buildings or commercial industrial properties, like, whatever asset class you're working on, focus in that area to then be able to analyze more properties and then be able to put offers on those properties. So the end goal is to buy something, but then what are the steps in between that get you to buying that one thing? So, if you make steps forward on a daily habit and ritual towards whatever that end goal is, you can start to put your blinders on and work towards that progress. And the other things will come and go. Like obviously, yeah, the marketing, the accounting, you need to think of those. You need to carve out time in your schedule. So, working at a corporate sales job, I'd make a ton of phone calls like while driving to appointments. So like on the road in the car, how can you double up on time instead of listening to the radio or listening to music? Like, can you make that time more efficient where you're pushing your project forward? And then at nighttime, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to find the time somewhere. And if you're trying to grow something else and you want to be active in whatever your business is, like the time is the time, and you have to figure out where you're going to find those blocks from. So that's everybody's kind of challenge, because everybody has different positions in life. If you have a wife, children, a secondary education, all these things require time. So you have to figure out like, right now I need to do this because it's a priority in my life and this is important. So.
Yeah, I love that. Priorities are everything, right? Because, you can have someone who works 12-hour days, and if they make their business a priority, they'll get it done either before they go to work or after, when they come home from work. But then you get someone whose priority, maybe their business is at the bottom of their priorities and they only work 8 hours a day. They'll somehow make an excuse for the fact that they have no time to get it done.
Yep.
Um, and I just want to speak on something that you are, you had said and that you focus on, and that the money will absolutely come, as you do more good for more people.
Yep.
So how, is this something that you've just kind of implemented, on your journey as an entrepreneur, or is this something that you've learned and you've known from day one?
I think that comes back to my childhood, kind of like that religious foundation of doing good in the world and trying to help more people. And then also in conjunction with like some of my later self-education, regarding just business principles, like, a lot of Tony Robbins principles on how important people are in this world. And also my corporate sales job. My corporate sales job was industrial robotics, and we sold to like every major company here in the US. So medical, semiconductor, gas and oil, aerospace, and the general theme is adding more value. Value is a perception. A person's value is basically, the way that you make them feel on the worth of this particular product. But if you bring more value to people, more revenue will come from it because people will purchase what you have. And when it comes down to it with anything, if you're helping out the people who are the ones buying it, they'll come back to you. They'll become fans of what you do. They'll see and believe and feel and buy into everything that you have. And that's just something where I like to be genuine and honest with people in all my dealings and transparent as to like what they're getting and why it's valuable. And from there, if that aligns with what they're looking for and it's important to their particular, life, then awesome. I'm perfectly capable and incredibly grateful to provide them with an opportunity. Same time, if I get said no to, like, no's happen all the time, man. That's a part of life. There are people who just vibe with other people's energy, other people's product, other people's style. And you don't need to have 7 billion people be your customer. If you did, like, that would be a great feat.
Yeah.
But even Apple, right? Like Apple and Google, and then I guess Microsoft, I don't even know if they still have a platform anymore, but Apple and Google have like the majority bulk share of like, cell phones. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, like these major brands, like they're split, but they hold a large population that they're helping. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a major global brand like that, but you just need to help a fraction of the people and add tremendous value to them, and then the money will come, no problem.
I absolutely love that. And I just want you to discuss how, you focus on value add in your corporate sales job, right?
Yep.
And I know that you also focus on value add in real estate. So let's talk about just value add in the multifamily world. How, you take that skill that you've built in the corporate world and how it transitions into multifamily real estate, in which you're just providing value to people and you're adding value to an asset, whether it's completely not cash flowing or it's cash flowing a little bit, and all of a sudden you provide tons of value to it, and all of a sudden it's cash flowing tremendously. Discuss how that process works.
So a lot of it comes down to just understanding the underlying value of a particular investment. And if you were to talk to a lot of people who haven't invested in real estate, the idea of purchasing a large 5, 10, $20 million apartment building is really overwhelming. It's scary because they feel like so much money is invested into it and there's a high risk. I'm on the other side of the fence where I think just giving your finances to somebody else, especially like a traditional model, like a stock market, like you just trust this person with your money, your hard-earned cash that you've worked thousands of hours for, years for. And you know the stock market is a lot more challenging to control versus an actual asset that you can go in there, you can see where the location is, in this particular apartment building. You can know that there's a strong population growth occurring in this city. You know that there's tremendous amount of jobs moving to this area. So if there's more people moving to this region, there's going to be more demand for housing. And one thing is true, like people need a place to live. So traditionally people will buy their own houses. Depending on the market, affordability may not be there. I live here in California, and you live in New York, incredibly expensive to buy a house. So that's why apartments are such a great option, because you can get a lot of those major amenities, and then pay a fraction of the price versus owning your own home. And going in and identifying the right building where maybe it was like a self-managed, family-owned building, and they just got distracted with life and weren't doing a great job. So expenses got out of control. Their maintenance team was billing them too much. Units were not being rented as high as they could have because they just were poor condition. Those are all opportunities for investors like us to recognize that there's an opportunity to go in there, improve the condition of the overall building, improve the energy, and rebrand it in a way where people want to live there and people want to pay the market standards for what that rent is. And then from there, you can provide that return to your investors. So you have a lot of control over how you increase the revenue from an apartment building. And that's the value add perspective. And, to be able to go into a physical asset and go in there and prove the value of it, and then be able to pay back your investors. Plus, on top of paying them back, they get to write off the tax depreciation. Plus, on being able to pay them back, they get quarterly cash flow. There's a lot of benefits behind multifamily real estate that allow you to help people through the entire process. The tenants inside the house to provide them a better quality home. The contractors who you're providing work for so that they can provide for their families, and the investors so that their money is secured in a physical asset that produces income every single month through rents, and then at the same time big payouts if the execution is done properly at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those who don't know how commercial real estate and the multifamily asset in itself is valued, let's kind of just break that down for someone who is brand new in the space, right? So commercial real estate and multifamily is valued in the income in which it produces, right? Where residential real estate is completely different. It's going to be all valued on the sales approach, sales comparison approach, where the house next door to me is going to help determine the value of my home, right? So let's help someone who's brand new in this understand how you may be making some renovations to a dilapidated unit, right? How does that transition into more income and more value for that apartment complex?
Yeah, of course. So let's say, as a hypothetical, like downtown Los Angeles. I'm not playing in this market yet, but hopefully one day I'd love to. But downtown downtown LA has massive high rises over there, but they also have a lot of older historical buildings. And the way that it works is, a brand new high rise comes in, they're asking for the market premium of rents, and you don't necessarily need to get there. Let's say they're charging, $2,500. Well, I guess in downtown, like $3,500 a month for like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath downtown. But you have this older building where it's just built in 1910s, 1920s. Maybe it has like old carpet in the rooms. It has like an old heating system. It just is older all around. To kind of jump back things like typically where we invest is like more like higher driven population growth areas. So like, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Carolinas, Indianapolis, like there's a lot of cities that have demographics that are really proponents of value add multifamily. But the general theme is this older building has the ability to be renovated with new floors, a new kitchen, a new bathroom, something to bring it up to market standards. So instead of maybe that $1,500 rent you're charging for this older building, maybe 2,000, you can charge 2,800. So not as much as like a brand new building, but a little bit less on the higher end, but on the higher end side. And as Steve was mentioning, the way that values are determined their value, the way that buildings determine their value is based on how much income it generates on a yearly basis, the net operating income. And they're almost looked at as individual businesses. So whatever that business generates, let's say $1 million net, that $1 million net is traded at based on the cap rate of what the buildings sell for in that area. So here in LA, the cap rates are a 4 cap or a 3.5 cap. And what that means is basically you can multiply that net income by about 25 times if it's a 4 cap, and it'll multiply your net income times the 25. So $25 million building if it generates $1 million in net income. So there's a very powerful multiplying effect in commercial real estate, whereas single family homes, are still good opportunities. They have different benefits to them, but at the same time, their value is based on what do the other houses directly in that neighborhood sell at. So if the entire market's going down, the value of your house goes down. Whereas a commercial building, if the entire market goes down, but it's still generating that same income, it'll retain its value much higher. And at the same time, you can influence the factors that increase the value of that building.
So basically, the higher the cap rate, the more of a workhorse that asset is going to be for your investment, right?
Yeah.
All right. Love it. And I have one more question for you, just for the people out there and the listeners who are looking to get started as an entrepreneur, or as a real estate professional entrepreneur. I know you're huge proponent of self-education and just self-development in itself. If you had $100 right now, and that was the last $100 that you had to spend, right? What would you spend that $100 on for educational purposes? So it could be books, a course. What would that $100 go towards?
That is a great question. My mind is jumping all over the place in terms
You're brand new too. You're brand new. So it's not you today. It's you when you first had gotten started, someone who's looking to jump in today.
Yeah. I mean, with that $100, I'd potentially save that.
Okay.
And first thing I would do is just go to a lot of networking events in the field that you're looking for. So if you jump into real estate, there's a tremendous amount of free meetups, free clubs where you can talk to people and get free advice from them. So from there, that advice will open up your mind to potential opportunities and directions you can go in. But if you know what you want to do, from there, I would specifically go on Amazon and purchase books related to that subfield that you want to work on. And it could be audiobooks as well. That's what I do a lot. A lot of Audible books regarding business, self-improvement, relationships. Just dive into whatever you're looking for and just put your full energy into it. That's the recommendation I'd have, because if you put your full energy into something, people will gravitate towards that. They'll be intrigued by you. And even if you don't have the experience or skills or expertise, they'll love what you bring because it gives them energy.
And that's so key. That's so key. I just want you to kind of speak on that just for one more second on that, just because there's a lot of people are have that kind of twisted where, I have nothing to bring to the table, but you do, right? It just may not be your knowledge. It may be something else. And like you said, it might be your energy. It might be your excitement. It might be the fact that you're willing to put in a couple of hours here and there, just to gain some of that knowledge, but you have that burning desire and you have that passion that fuels you.
100%. The one resource that we all have that is the limiting factor is time. We all have time. And the belief that you don't have value to provide is a limiting belief. I'm telling you straight up. So if you go in and you put your full energy into something, even though you don't have the experience, but you offer, how can you help out with a particular project, or you come up with a creative solution for somebody you want to take on as a mentor on, hey, I found another way to get leads to you. If you just provide value and show you're thinking outside the box, and thinking outside the box is a relative term. Like, you can go on YouTube to get ideas outside the box to provide value for somebody. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to be an absolute genius. Like, things can be learned. And if somebody loves you as a person and enjoys who you are as a person, they can take you under their wing because you put in that first step and energy into it. So don't limit yourself is what I would say. Always try and go bigger, but always try and add value to those around you, and it will resonate.
Mic drop. No, that was, no, it's perfect. It's literally exactly how I live my life at this point, and I love that, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Dugan, I am so grateful to have you on, man, and I'm excited for what your career, what your journey has in store for you in the near future. And this will not be the last time that we hop on together. I know that we can learn a ton more from each other. I love it, and I appreciate you. I appreciate all the knowledge and value that you've brought to our audience and our subscribers. And please let people know where they can find you on social media and potentially even, your website.
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'm growing Instagram. It's been one of those love-hate relationships because of what it does to people, but I'm really big on positivity. So if you want to follow me, Kevin K Dugan, Dugan. That's on Instagram, and just trying to bring more value to people. So positivity, encouragement, but then also help people accomplish their goals in life, which is one of the things that motivates me. And my website, Altus, ALTUSIG.com. Different kinds of education investments there regarding real estate. So love to see you, love to help out however possible.
Thanks, Kevin. Much appreciated. Signing off. Thank you so much.
Take care, man.
You as well.